Hey everybody, this is Area Code Batavia, a podcast about what it means to belong in Batavia, Illinois. I'm your host, Richard Clark. Today on the podcast, a conversation with Beth Walker and Kristen Dessler of MainStreet, Batavia. First, support from Area Code Batavia comes from our sponsors, 212 Degrees and Meadowcrafters. These partners are helping support this podcast as we explore what makes Batavia truly special. And stay tuned for later in the episode because we'll hear from Stephanie at Meadowcrafters about what makes a Batavia garden truly unique. If you run a local business and you want to join our current partners in reaching a highly engaged local audience, we're currently opening up a few spots for the new season. Area Code Batavia isn't just a podcast. It's a direct line to the people who live, work, and shop right here in our community. You can find out more by clicking the link in the show notes. Every year, just as the downtown Boardwalk Shops open, we release an episode featuring a conversation with each of the Boardwalk Shop owners, and we'll be doing the same thing for the next episode. But in the lead up to that episode, I thought I'd have a conversation with the people responsible for making it all happen, Beth and Kristen from MainStreet, Batavia. Not only do they organize and prep the Boardwalk Shop owners, but they also evaluate and curate the shops themselves. That evaluating and curating is a great example of one of the things that intrigued me about MainStreet as an organization. Because MainStreet is responsible for so many things that make up the character of our town, like the farmers market, the boardwalk shops, and a number of events throughout the year, they actually have a lot of power and influence over how things go down. For instance, when you check out the shops this year, you'll have MainStreet to thank for the uniqueness and diversity on display. But these kinds of public-facing, community-defining decisions come with a lot of weight, and sometimes even baggage. So how do Beth and Kristen lead in these initiatives without feeling overwhelmed, not just by the work, but by public scrutiny? Here's my conversation with Beth Walker and Kristen Dessler of MainStreet, Batavia.
All right, I'm excited.
Okay,
we'll have to do feet language.
Beth and I are usually within touching distance,
so to keep each other grounded.
Have you ever seen the Ariana Grande and what's the
interview
when they're
the answer is yes,
when they're doing
the
Wicked interviews and they just kind of like she'll just hold her pinky or hold
it was her index finger, I believe.
Was it? Well, this is how we also communicate. We just do gentle little.
When we presented at National this week, we were like basically on top of each other. Hi, we're here.
Just a little shoulder touch or something.
Did you guys become extremely close after you started working with each other?
Well, there was glimmers of it, like because Kristen was a volunteer for so long. Yeah. She was a volunteer for 2 years, and we just had a conflict like before an event.
Not between us.
Oh, no.
Oh, dang. I was getting excited.
There was an issue.
Yeah.
And the way Kristen took care of this issue, I was like...
Well done.
Well, I think I got a hot flash, and I was like, have you ever thought about leaving the park district?
Yes.
So it took...
So you poached her?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
And how did they feel about that?
Well, it's Oswego. We don't mind.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I worked for the Oswego Park District
I
for...
didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I commend you. That's great.
Yeah, for over 10 years before. And that's why I was volunteering in Batavia because I was like, I'm doing all this work in Oswego. We had moved to Batavia, and I thought I should be involved
in Batavia.
So we already knew that we would work well together, but we didn't realize just how well. We just really hit it off. It's been really fantastic.
Yeah. But you do have conflict with each other sometimes.
I don't think so.
We don't have it. I mean, it sounds made up, but we really don't have a lot of conflict. I think what we have is a real balance of this job has a lot of highs and lows. And I think specifically when we first started together, there were a lot of challenges that I wasn't prepared for. I don't think. I'll just be honest. Because I came from a much larger organization. So I worked in Parks and Rec for over 10 years before coming to MainStreet. And, there's a lot of safety within a big organization.
Yes.
And I wasn't prepared for the level of, I don't know, just eyes on you as a smaller staff.
And how people feel like they can Like on social media, just how people think they reach out.
Speak about Main Street in this big way.
I think about this all the time.
Yes.
Because I know you guys and I know how limited resource-wise you are.
Yes.
You're also relatively independent.
Yes.
This is a pro and a con.
Yes.
Right.
Clearly, is what you're articulating.
Yes,
We're
exactly.
jumping right in because
Yes.
this is like a big piece of what I think about with Main Street. The things that you have done are so outsized in relationship to the size of the organization and to your point about people weighing in, and this is the tension, the degree of input people have.
Yes.
Right.
Actual, formal input.
Yes.
It's not a
100%.
political entity or something.
Yes.
Right.
No, yeah. We are our own nonprofit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I was unprepared for that piece. And so because of that, Beth and I do say we're like trauma bonded. You know, we had a few years where we were really in the thick of it together and we had a very clear vision of what we wanted organizationally, I think really early into working together. We knew it was going to take time to get there and we knew not everyone was going to be happy with the process as we were getting there. And
Why?
so because of change, I don't think most,
Change is
you know,
hard.
I think change is hard for people. I think there had been certain expectations of the organization maybe
that were unrealistic, and we had to really
Too ambitious?
Oh no, we do downtown support downtown support for businesses.
I see.
And what does that support look like? It's support. It's not. We're not responsible for their business.
Right.
So it's like making sure people were really clear about these are the services that we can provide you, and this is how you can be involved with us.
Yeah.
Instead of people just being like, "Well, you should do more," without having any real idea, but just out of this maybe they were going through something or we had somebody there's all these cars going down the street. Why aren't you getting them in my shop? You know?
Yeah.
And it's well, that's really not our job. We can share the things that you're doing and support you in that way. And we're trying to bring people to town. But overall, they are responsible for drawing people into their own shops and making sure people knew that's how we support them.
Yeah.
And once I think that the merchants most of them understood this, of course, it's always the troubles that you remember so much.
Yeah.
But it really has alleviated any kind of those tensions that we used to have with merchants.
Well, and I think one of the things that made me want to work for Main Street is that I felt like Main Street did a lot of the fun things downtown.
Yes,
and
yes.
I was really attracted to the kind of grassroots efforts of it all to just make your community a better place.
Can you just, before you continue, list some of those fun things?
So we run the farmers market, we run the boardwalk shops, we run the artisan collective in conjunction with the farmers market.
Cocktails in the park, Bat Fest,
the wine
walk
Yeah.
was so much fun. Yeah.
We are a free support to the downtown businesses.
Yeah. Okay, so you saw all those things and you wanted to work for
Yeah,
Main
so
Street.
I just thought, what a better way to help to build the Batavia that I want to live in, but to
Well,
to
and
be
you really
involved.
had the advantage of working as a volunteer to really see what we're doing and know that you enjoyed the work.
That's what attracted me to it, but I think having my background really early on, I realized, Beth and I had conversations about the organization and where we wanted to go, and I think I felt like this is not a sustainable organization. And then the conversation became, we really like working together. We really have ambitious goals for Batavia. If we keep doing the things as they're currently going, we're going to make it a year or two and not be able to do this job anymore.
Because you were doing too much.
Well, those heavy lift events, doing multiple heavy lift events in a short time frame, you rely on volunteers and you have volunteers to do things, but those are really exhausting and draining when you have, it would be you do cocktails in the park and that's a week. It's exhausting. And then, 2 weeks later, we would do dinner table.
It was basically like creating and running a restaurant for a night.
Right.
Which
Outside.
That was
with
my
none
first
of
volunteering.
Yes.
Fantastic event.
Yes, we
but
loved
it's a
it.
heavy lift.
Yeah.
And then you go right into block party.
2 weeks later, we had block party. So it's 2 weeks, 2
Oh,
weeks,
wow.
2 weeks.
And it's just exhausting.
Okay, I saw your LinkedIn post, and I got excited because so for the people listening, you all just gave a talk at Main Street America conference
Yep.
about essentially how to wind down programs responsibly.
Right.
And I got so excited because I talked to so many people who just somehow seem to thrive on doing too much.
Yeah.
And I just kind of know it's not healthy.
Yeah.
It's hurting someone somewhere or in the future or you know what I mean? Like there's something happening, and I don't know, who knows? People are different, but especially with organizations, you have to sort of be careful with that. And so I liked that you guys took a proactive approach about that and then told other people how to do it.
Yeah.
Tell us, like, what were the things that you wound down?
So since I started in 2019 and my first day was actually the first day of Oktoberfest, we no longer host Oktoberfest. It was a super fun event. It was 3 days long, super weather dependent, took a full-time person about half a year to plan. So we decided to cut that. Wasn't supporting our downtown businesses. We had brought in outside food and beverage people. And, you know, if you take into account staff cost, you're essentially losing money on that if it's taking half a year to put that on. So that, it was a big one. And that one...
It'd been going for how long?
Gosh, I don't know. Maybe... Main Street took it over. Somebody else had run it, and so I don't know.
But it was like a long-standing sort of tradition. I think that's what I'm interested in. Is like, how did that feel to people? I'm really interested because, like, Geneva just announced they're not doing their parade for Swedish Days or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's also a different rollout, right? So we cut Egg Hop, which is our downtown egg collection. So when we got rid of that, we didn't make an announcement that we cut it. It just wasn't on our next event calendar. And then when people reached out, you know, we just had in mind, okay, well, the Park District does this, other organizations do this, so you can lead people to something else instead of just being like, well, we cut it and it's...
I think for us, you know, we want to do things that make sense organizationally. We really spent years and still do spend a lot of time listening to the businesses and what they want and need. And that has evolved over time, which is why Main Street has to evolve, because, you know, as our business community grows, as the economy changes, as things fluctuate, we have to be responsive to that as a Main Street to keep people interested in coming downtown. So that's another piece of why I think we decided to make some of those changes, in addition to being a more sustainable organization and, you know, more sustainable career for both of us. We also love all of these events personally. And so none of it has been easy decision making or flippant or, you know, even with Egg Hop. I mean, my kids were on my back about Egg Hop. You know, they were bummed. And I think part of it is just deciding if it, you know, we have a whole process of and work with our board to make these decisions. It's not something that we do on our own, but we have created a system for doing that, which is what we shared at conference. Looking at some different things like our mission alignment, financial sustainability, the community impact of the event,
sponsorship value. Like, are you able to just all the factors that you need to do to sustain your organization? Like, we just run through them all and giving the board the metrics and a different way of looking at it, because before it was like, well, I like it, let's keep it, you know. So if they had to look at all these factors, they give us their impact, and then we put it all together and we share it at our annual retreat, and then we have conversations. And that's how the board decides whether or not to keep or eliminate an event.
And I think they started to realize also, you know, something that was pretty evident to me when I first came in, which was that we're a small staff, and running essentially festivals maybe doesn't make the most sense for such a small staff. So, you know, like Windmill City Days, City Fest is with the Park District is a fantastic event. They have a very large staff, an infrastructure and operations team, and all of that to help them execute that event. We were doing block party, significantly less people, but still about 5,000 people coming downtown and 2 full-time people running that event. So yes, we have fantastic volunteers that were helping us on the day of and all of that. And especially as the world changes too, like I'm less comfortable holding giant events as such a small staff and without as much support.
Perhaps. That makes sense. The difference between festivals and what you all do, it feels like to me, is like festivals are all encompassing. They have a lot of different things, and the focus is a theme, right? Whereas it seems like most of what Main Street is doing is like, it's like a thing we are doing.
Yes.
Like Bat Fest is essentially a big trick-or-treating around the town.
Right. We want to get people to explore as much of the downtown district and support our businesses. The more we can get people exploring, that's better for our businesses. And our goal is to retain them.
Yeah.
And festival, when I think of it also, it's like it's bringing people to a centralized location, like the band shell, Peg Bond Center.
Yeah.
And we were doing a lot of events that did that. And when we started to talk to the businesses, they were going, well, that doesn't benefit me. Those people aren't coming into my business. They're going there, or, their outside food and drink were being brought in, or what have you. So we really tried to think about creating a new event, new event schedule, or more like promotion style events that we could control a bit better, and then also would have this kind of traveling component, like Beth was saying, so that people would really explore the downtown and hopefully find something new.
Yeah.
Like the wine walk is a perfect example of that. That's something that the merchants had been asking for years. And, we worked closely with the city and the police department to make that happen. And we had a lot of positive feedback. We sent out a survey to everybody who participated, all the attendees, and we had people say, like, I've lived in Batavia for 20 years, and there's shops I never knew existed. So that's like the exact mission of that event, is to get people inside their businesses. They're like, we're going to shop these more. I'm going to support local better. And another one that we added in was the holiday sneak peek, which is going to become the Lantern Walk this year, the Holiday Lantern Walk. That's just a response of trying to get people in the doors of these businesses.
Shop owners had been specifically asking for a wine walk?
Yeah. Well,
where did that come from? That's so specific.
Yeah. Well, other communities, I think.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone's paying attention to what other communities are doing. And actually, in the Main Street world, I mean, we were pretty aware that these can be very successful promotions for businesses, too. So a lot of times, Beth and I will go to conference and we'll write a little note down or something, and then we'll kind of bring it up to each other every few months, and eventually it happens, right?
Yeah.
Hype Team started that way. Wine Walk kind of started that way.
Even the way that we changed doing our board retreat came from a conference session. Like you just take a little nugget of this and you're like, okay, this is something I can change. And that's what we try and get every time we go away. Like, what's a little something I can bring back just to make our community better?
Now it's time for Batavia in Bloom, a special segment in partnership with our sponsor, Meadow Crafters. Meadow Crafters provides custom, tailored care for all your garden wants and needs. In this installment, I talked to Stephanie Gilbert, the plant and nature enthusiast behind Meadow Crafters, about what it means to create a garden that's true to the spirit of this community, beautiful, and a little weird.
I started my career in the conservation side of things, and then went into fine estate gardening, where it was perfectly manicured, tedious stuff. So I've worked in both sides of the industry of plant folks, and I think that there are not enough folks right in the middle. I think native gardens oftentimes get a bad rap because we kind of sell them as this thing of oh, you don't have to maintain it, you don't have to water it, you don't have to really care about it, it's just a part of the ecosystem. And then people are like, oh, it's so ugly. And it's well, it looks like a prairie, it looks like a woodland, it doesn't look like what you're used to aesthetically as a garden, but that doesn't necessarily have to be how it is. Right. It can be, and that's fine if that's your aesthetic. I think there are a lot of folks who would like to have their garden be not an ecological dead zone, but they would like it to be still manicured and still in a way that's aesthetically designed, and it has repetition, and it has some cohesion and not looking so chaotic. It doesn't have to be one way or the other.
And it feels to me Batavia is a place that would lend itself to that, in the sense that it feels like there are people here that would fall right in the middle of that.
I think that a lot of the inquiries that I've gotten have been I want my garden to look whimsical and beautiful, and not I actually learned a new word from one of your listeners who called me up, coiffed.
Coiffed?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah. Just so meticulously manicured, and cut edges, and everything's perfect in its place, It doesn't look very natural when we look at gardens like that sometimes.
Yeah.
And so, I think people want a lot more whimsy in their garden, and I love that. Every garden I work in, I want to feel like I'm like a little forest fairy dancing through a cute whimsical garden. So I think there's a lot of kind of desire for that more ecologically beneficial and just natural feel while still being just beautiful.
that feels like a metaphor for the community of Batavia in some ways. Like, this is a community that is not Geneva in the sense that Geneva is very like, it is coiffed in a lot of ways. Batavia feels like comfortable with a little bit of messiness or just like less pretense, but still like a lot of beauty and a lot of really interesting things. And that to me is fascinating. And as someone who has never had a garden or thought much about having a garden, it appeals to me, this idea of creating a space that is more dynamic. It surprises you in various ways.
Yeah, I think that Batavia like still has this coolness about it where it hasn't quite conformed to the surrounding growing areas, you know, and I do love that about it. It is very I had a person who I was chatting with Lance about, and they were like, "Oh, that looks weird, I want it." You know, and I thought that's like so cool and kind of Batavian, and I love that that's the vibe. Yeah.
If you want a garden that helps keep Batavia weird, click the link in the show notes or go to meadowcrafters.com to schedule a consultation today. I like the distinction you are both making around two types of ambition to me. Like, that a lot of people think of ambition as like, do the most, do all of it. And you came in and said, we can't do that. But you sort of framed it as, but we had big dreams and ambitions for Batavia. We can't do them if we're doing these things.
Correct. Exactly.
I have a personality where I am more apt to think about paring down in a different way. I'm like, I just can't, you know, I just can't do this. I can't do this. So I'm cutting it out so that I can like do my job. But I like the idea of like, what is the thing we could do if we got rid of these things?
Well, I think dinner table is another perfect example of that. Main Street used to run dinner table, but that raised money for the food pantry. Great goal of that.
Yes, yeah.
But our job is to support the downtown businesses. So if we're raising money for another organization, we're not even hitting our own mission.
Right.
So, you know, working with an organization who their mission is, so United Way, their mission is to raise funds to distribute to other organizations. So we worked with them to take over that event because we understand that's a great event and we didn't want to get rid of it. So just finding somebody it's better in line with.
Yeah. Can you describe for people listening the look and feel of downtown Batavia? How would you sort of describe it to someone who was saying, like, I've never been to your town. What's downtown like?
Oh, it's cute. It's charming.
I think it's artsy. It's outdoorsy. You know, one of the things that attracted me to the community originally was just being on the river as part of the Tri-Cities, and it felt accessible and a little bit more interesting and unique. Yeah, really homey. I mean, I think we have the experience all the time of just walking down the street and seeing somebody that we know, and especially this time of year as it's warming up and more people are out and about, and it's just very charming to me.
It's very charming. I do think one of the dangers of when you do work downtown all the time and you're looking for things to improve, you have a tendency to like go like, oh, well, this could be better or that can be better. So you see them, and then we'll have visitors come into town from other Main Street communities. I'm like, oh my gosh, your town is so charming. It's so this. So like those are the things that I try and remind myself of, is everyone's not seeing all the things that I know.
Yeah, it's hard because familiarity and comparison are both hard for living I think in Batavia, I don't know, I won't speak for other things, but like living in Batavia, I find that I and a lot of other people I've seen will take it for granted. I saw a dude who had lived here for years. He came up to me at an event and he said, I have listened to every single one of your episodes, and I had taken this town for granted, and this made me realize like this is a really special town. And I find that like that there's that, and then there's people who go, we should be like Geneva. We should have like a street like Geneva has with all of that stuff. And that can be hard to overcome.
I won't speak for Beth, but I will.
As we do.
We do. We like to do it. We don't want to be Geneva or St. Charles. And that's really at the core of what we do every day, is how do we identify ourselves and build out this brand for Batavia that is a separate identity from those communities.
And really amplify that, like focus on all of these really good things. I think, you know, Bonnie Baumgartner, that she did that City of Good Energy, but I think that slogan is just so amazing for Batavia.
We love it.
I think our community is just, it's the best.
Yeah. What was the first time you both remember feeling like you belonged in
Well, I feel like I've just been around forever. I think I told you before, I started working in Batavia in 1989, so I'm really aging myself there. But I think once I started getting involved, after my kids started into school, and you get out of the infant stages or whatever, when I started volunteering with the school district and just getting more involved and getting to know more people, it's just, I think the more you are involved with your community, the more it feels like your community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started volunteering with the Artisan Collective. I think I had a kind of limited knowledge of what was happening downtown before that time. My husband and I would come downtown, but, especially not having kids in school yet or anything like that, wasn't as involved. And dipping my toes in there, and then, really working at Main Street has given me a sense of purpose and made me feel like the world might be a crazy place, but I have this little corner of my community that I can help to make as good as I can make it. And that's made me feel like I belong here.
Do you think that Batavia is unique in that aspect where the way to feel belonging is to get involved in that way? Is that unique? Is that sort of like a fundamental human thing? Partially know the answer, but I don't know.
Well, I think that we're unique. Keep going back to Main Street because we're here, but when National Main Street came in and did our, strategic planning session, they do this survey and, you send it out to the community and they ask these questions. And then one of the questions is like, what's the best thing about Batavia? And our number one response was community. And I think they were like, we've never seen that come up.
What do people normally say? Because I remember you sharing that and somewhere, I don't remember where it was. I was at that thing where you said that.
Yeah.
And I thought, what's the other thing you would say?
Right.
What's your favorite thing about your town? I guess you would say like stores
the
or something?
dining or the art, the public art.
Or maybe the river. There could be a lot of things that
Yeah.
are like just actual things.
Yeah.
I just think that we're so unique.
Actual things.
Physical things.
Physical
Less
things.
abstract.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We always say Batavia loves Batavia. And I think that's absolutely true.
And that's what that means. Batavia loves Batavians.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and we love the things that make us so special. I think that's one of the reasons that people love the boardwalk shops. It's something really unique and different that our community has, and another one surrounding us doesn't have it, or, Water Street or Sturdy Shelter, like just these really community type things where people can gather and feel a part of something.
I do, since you brought up the boardwalk shops, maybe we'll transition into that a little bit, because I do want to talk about that, because this is going to essentially be part of a 2-part series, which is like this episode, and then the next episode I think will be interviews with all the boardwalk shops. I do that every year.
Yeah.
It's my favorite episode, I think, at this point to do, because, partially because I do it every year. I don't do a lot of those, but also just enjoy meeting all of these people and specifically talking about their hopes and dreams. That's really inspiring to me. But the question I have is, why is the boardwalk shop such a good fit for Batavia? From a perspective of someone like me at the time, came out of nowhere, right? There's nothing like that around here, and there's no obvious thing that says this is perfect for Batavia. So in your guys' mind, were you working at Main Street when this happened?
I was working at Main Street through the construction portion of it, but it had already been funded and all the research had been done when I started,
So you can share maybe a bit what you know from the origin, but also just from your perspective as you've seen it play out. Why has it been such a good fit?
The origin of it is Marty Callahan. You've interviewed him with the flag. So he used to be an alderman in Batavia, and he had read an article in a blog, Strong Towns, about these chalets in Muskegon, Michigan. And he was like, oh, this is really cool. So he brought it to council, and it just happened to be, I think Bob Hansen was there. Bob Hansen was a long-time board member. And, he was like, oh, well, Main Street's interested in that. So a group of them went up in Bob's RV and checked out these shops in Muskegon. And it really came from there. We had that underutilized parking lot. And the city grant they had an economic development grant that some of the parameters had changed, and with the parameter changes, it allowed them to give us this grant. That's how it started.
And I think we also benefited, at least now I was not here at the time either, but from an outsider's perspective and from what Beth and I have talked about, we benefited from COVID because
100%.
the shops opened that summer of 2020, and People weren't traveling.
It was exciting to see something happening, even with the confusion.
Was the idea a response to COVID?
No.
So it was already in process before COVID. That's
correct.
Wild, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you remember at the time, the shops, it was like you could have one family in at a time.
Yes.
And, you would kind of line up for the shop you wanted to go in. And and it was outdoors. So I think it had a lot of benefits in that way. And then, people were here. So they were really experiencing it, maybe more so than they would have been if it would have been a typical summer or something.
Yeah.
And I think, that in conjunction with the farmers market just being across the street. And we were one of the few farmers markets that grew during COVID just because the city allowed us to expand. We used to just be on the bricks of River Street, and they really let us to expand so we could go add so many more vendors, that's really when the market, it was great before, but it really exploded at that point. So we get all this foot traffic. It's kind of like a magical morning if you go from the farmers market over to the boardwalk shops. And I think people are really proud of that, being Batavians and having something that's just so special.
Yeah. It feels like a perfect storm situation.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a really perfect storm for us.
Yeah.
Well, and that we weren't actually taking out any debt to do the project, I think is huge and something that we can't emphasize enough. The city allows us to use that parking lot. We were given that grant.
We had amazing volunteers and amazing sponsors who donated so much to
over
the program.
$40,000.
It's hard for me to think of one major initiative or institution in Batavia that didn't happen because of just free stuff or volunteers. I was just that was a big takeaway from Water Street.
Yes.
This wouldn't exist without volunteers. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like the coolest thing. I feel like that is why I love Batavia. Why I love Main Street, and I say it to Beth all the time, is if we have an idea, we can just do that thing. And I really try to remind her that all the time. We talk about it all the time. It's it might take us a little while, especially because we're trying to be responsible in all the ways we talked about before and cognizant of our time and resources and that sort of thing. But if we have an idea, we can do it. And there are teams of people in this community that will help you. And I've just never seen that before or experienced that before.
This episode of Area Code Batavia is brought to you by 212 Degrees Construction Group. Maybe you live in an older home here in Batavia, one of those houses with good bones and great local history. But you also know the reality of living with shortcuts taken by previous owners. There's that feeling you have of they did the upgrade, but they definitely cut corners. Of course, we'd like to make some upgrades of our own in our house. We have this vision of turning our back porch into a sunroom, a place where I can sit at my desk surrounded by trees and the sounds of nature and actually get some kind of work done in the sunlight. But we've hesitated. We're not big fans of those high-pressure contractors who want you to sign right now for a today-only discount. And it always leaves us wondering, are these people actually invested in my home, or do they just want to check? That's why I'm glad that 212 Degrees Construction is right here in town. They're a Batavia-based business, and most importantly, they're not interested in patchwork solutions. Their primary concern is a job well done. When you talk to the people at 212 Degrees Construction Group, there's no pressure, and they handle the permits and the headaches so that you don't have to. They're the people you call when you're tired of thinking about doing something someday and you're ready to get things done right. If you're ready to turn your dream home upgrade into a reality, or just fix that one room that's been driving you crazy, go to 212dcg.com or click the link in the show notes. This is going to be so petty, but I have to bring it up. I was listening to the really excellent live show that Chris Wallace and Sam Kraft did the other day about the Tri-Cities or whatever. And I was watching it, and they had someone, I'm so sorry if this guy happens to be listening, but the guy responsible for this big development over in St. Charles, I think. And I just got the ick from it. And I think the reason was because it was just money has made this possible. And we are making a place where lots of people can spend lots of money. And it's going to, there's just a different vibe to the bigwigs with tons of money are coming in and making our town better. I think that's a thing I haven't seen happen in Batavia yet.
Right.
We've had things similar to that. I'm just going to, you guys don't have to say anything, but the data center is probably the closest we've come to that. But the big box stores are an example of the results of when that happens. But I think it's smart for us to just be real skeptical of that framing.
I mean, I think development is positive.
Yes.
I think if any developers are listening to this podcast, please give us a call. There are definitely, there's definitely room for it, right?
Yeah,
I think the good news is that we do have a really savvy city council. We have a lot of great city staff and other organizations in place who I think are protective of what's already been built in terms of the community and grassroots efforts that we were talking about this whole time. I think that's the benefit, right? If we were to get a great housing development now or some sort of retail restaurant situation or parking or what have you, we are actually really well suited to take that on because we have these other elements in place that...
I mean, we can't be happier that the QT9 is decided to headquarter in downtown. We're just thrilled about that. That's just a real win for Batavia and having so many people downtown during the week. I mean, it's exciting.
Essential for supporting our small businesses. And that's really the perspective that Beth and I come from is, we can hopefully help to support these businesses at the boardwalk, help them to grow there. But if they move to a brick and mortar space, we want them, and not just boardwalk shops, anyone that's in a brick and mortar space downtown, we want them to be able to really thrive here. And the more people that live in your downtown, the better off they are for that to happen.
Yeah, that live and work in the
downtown. Correct. Yeah.
You mentioned you have a lot of feedback, some positive, some negative. Who's your primary constituents? Like who are the people you're most interested in hearing from? And I feel like based on how this conversation has gone, I maybe know the answer, but like, do you feel like you have a primary group and then a secondary group? Like, how do you think about filtering that feedback?
Well, I mean, we really are interested in anybody who's going to support locals. So it doesn't really matter if you're from our community or outside of our community, but just so, I mean, I think people there's a certain group of people who support local, right? You have, and then there's certain people you won't. So, I mean, anybody who's going to support the businesses and want to be invested in these businesses is somebody we want to reach out to.
I think when we're making any level of decision, we try to talk to the businesses first.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Because we do feel like we want to do our best to serve their needs and be that level of support for them. I think, Beth said earlier, we're not there to make financial decisions for a business. We're not there to, impose ourselves on anyone. Yeah. But what we do want to do is just kind of be that base level of support and let them feel like they're a part of the community in that way. So we like to check in. We do business retention and expansion visits with our downtown businesses each year. And part of that is, how can we be better?
And be responsive to them. I mean, last year at the beginning of the year, one of the things that was just, they kept talking about, we need more foot traffic. We need more foot traffic. We're like, okay, well, we feel like we're doing a pretty good job reaching those in Batavia who are interested. So we have to make a concerted effort to expand outside. And I think Kristen and I really put ourselves, well, me specifically, outside of my comfort zone and trying to get on television. For my liking, I was on television.
Okay, so
I don't know for both of us.
Yes. In the last year or so, you guys have been on television a lot.
Right. And
the reason for that is specifically because you heard we need more foot traffic and it's not coming from,
we know that we need to be a regional draw. We have to get people from other communities, and we're like, okay, well, if we can get ourselves on television and try and spread the word, let's see what happens.
Interesting.
And that's part of what being more fiscally responsible has allowed us to do. We were able to allocate $25,000 to regional marketing last year, which for a small organization, I think is a substantial amount. And
the previous budget was $5,000. So if
$5,000, many of our downtown businesses simply don't have that type of marketing budget, right? But we kind of take the perspective of if we can market the entire downtown, then hopefully all of them will benefit from that. And
you have like sort of consumers or citizens or however you want to think about it, residents, and then you have businesses. Has there ever been a time you can think of where those have been at odds? And you're nodding.
I would think that the community, if you are not someone who is overly involved or invested in like the downtown. I mean, when I first moved here, I wasn't really, right? So I knew that there was a city and City Hall. And I knew that there was probably a Chamber of Commerce because that's
everybody knows those, right?
Yep.
They're kind of the known organizations, a school district. I really didn't know what Main Street was until I came to Batavia, and even for being here for a little while. So I think that as a community member, without having a lot of knowledge of the organization, I'd be like, do as many events as you possibly can, and do that sounds great, and keep adding. Of course we want more
4th of July.
Yes, of course we want more fun things all the time. So I think for us, it's been trying to kind of share our story more, who we are, and kind of pull back that curtain and
and also sharing the story of our downtown businesses. We do a monthly feature on a downtown business. We just try and make sure people understand, like, when you are shopping in downtown Batavia, these are your neighbors that you're supporting. A lot of our businesses live here.
I have a real specific question because this is coming from someone who has to decide what every episode is about. When I asked you guys to come on finally, you were like, it's about time. And I told you, I think at that moment, that you were like, we were wondering when you were going to ask.
That was a Beth Walker response.
My worst fear is that everyone that hasn't been on the podcast is just mad at me because they haven't been on the podcast. So how do you think about who to feature at a given time? Like what businesses to feature in and what businesses to not right now?
Well, we put out an ask. Like we say, hey, if you're interested, let us know. That's the number one. And then maybe if we don't get the response, because we do ask them to maybe do a little write-up on themselves. And then if we don't get a response, maybe...
That's a natural limiter for sure.
So then we'll do a sample of somebody. Like we try and alternate restaurant, retail, or a service. So you just try and mix it up. Yeah. And now our take is like, hey, we want to feature you, and here's a blurb about you. What do you think about that? And most people are like, that's fantastic. Just go with it. So that's been made easier. But the goal is to feature everybody.
So we just kind of are working our way through as much as possible. And we do a monthly ask to all of the businesses, hey, send us what you have going on for next month. And so that's kind of our way to remind them we're here to be a marketing arm for you. Right. And many of them do that. And we've been doing that for several years now. And so the longer we've kind of had that same system, I'm a big systems person. And so
that's at Park District. She's got it under now.
The longer we've been doing kind of that same format, we've seen engagement go way up. And
our newsletter, I think, speaks volumes to that. Yeah. We have doubled our newsletter size in the past 3 years. And we still continue to have about a 50% open rate. So that's really great. That's a great number for our downtown businesses.
So in short, we try not to pick and choose.
Yeah, this is such inside baseball, but this is making me realize that it really matters who your primary audience is, who your primary people you're serving is. Because for me, I'm realizing, my primary person I'm serving is that guy who said, this made me realize, Batavia is great. Now, I don't know if I necessarily always need people to have that reaction, but those people are the people. And so the businesses, to me, are the secondary. If someone's mad, that's fine. I just want to make sure that people give a crap about whoever I'm talking to.
Right.
So, but in your case, your measure of success is whether the businesses you serve feel like they are...
Correct.
Which is an impossible thing to do. But
I mean, what we try to do is give an opportunity. Yeah. You know, and our kind of motto, I think, internally is we will give you opportunities to engage with us. We give that to everyone. And then, we understand small business is hard and your time is very valuable when you run a business too. So some of our business owners just simply can't make the time to maybe do certain things that they would like to do. And we'll try to keep moving them in that direction or plugging in with them when we can. But if you engage with us, we will engage with you. And that's kind of the first line, right? Like you respond to the email, we're there, we're going to follow through. And then the others, we just keep checking in on and asking how we can help along the way.
I mean, we have had some negative interactions with businesses, but then we just keep reminding them. I think it can be frustrating from my perspective, like if we're engaging you and telling you how we can support you and then you don't ever respond to us, but then maybe something happens and you're like, well, why wasn't I in that? Right. It's like, well, you have to do your piece. There's 3 full-time equivalency that work here. Yeah. We can't go and collect everything from everybody all the time. So there's a certain amount of responsibility, and But we're continuously happy to go like, hey, this is how you can be involved with us. This is how we can support you.
Yeah. I'll ask this question to Beth first, and then Kristen, you can answer second. Was there ever a time when you questioned everything?
Oh, absolutely. I had COVID. I had COVID. I was at home. Or the committee, we work off a committee structure. Our farmers market does require our businesses, the businesses out there, to make or grow at least 75% of what they're offering. And we had denied somebody because they were buying flowers and creating bouquets. And I was like, well, you can't, that doesn't meet our, criteria. You don't qualify. And the person took to social media, to the what's happening pages, and
Awesome.
There was hundreds of responses. And at that time, I don't know, were you even at Main Street yet?
No, not for that.
So it was just, I was the only full-time person at the time. Kathy was working part-time. As I was cleaning out the shed, we have a big shed, and I move all this. We are responsible for moving and cleaning all of that stuff. So I'm in there, and people are...
Are you cleaning out the shed with COVID?
Well, no, I guess this was right around the time I had COVID.
Yeah.
But like during this, people are commenting, Batavia MainStreet, what elitist. They're telling us and I'm like, me,
I am Batavia MainStreet.
And you're telling me that I'm elitist
it's just you at this time,
and
too.
I'm picking and choosing who it is. And so it started, and then I had gotten sick and the comments kept coming. And somebody called and said, you need to take care of this. You need to shut this down. Where I'm like, I'm at home, I'm sick. And my husband's like, you need to quit that job. I am over this. You don't need to take this.
What did that mean, take care of this? What was expected of you?
Well, I don't know. How do I control social media? I was trying to reach that person. I didn't want to respond because people can be so brutal in that. So finally, I just did a post and be like, hey, just if anybody's ever wondering how we make our selection, here we go. But just that how people can be so vicious when they actually know nothing about what's going on. But just that woman saying that, hey, they didn't pick me because of XYZ, which had nothing to do with why she wasn't allowed at the market. And people are like, well, you should just be allowed to go and set up anywhere you want.
They should just allow whoever.
That's the closest I've come.
This is pretty funny because I'm going to tell a story that may have happened around the same time where I emailed you guys or Jennifer did, I don't know, one of us, and we wanted to set up a booth at the farmers market and we got a no because we didn't make something that you could sell. And I was mad.
Really?
Not mad, but annoyed is more accurate. Sure. And for a solid week, I was like, and honestly, same feeling. So elitist, they think you just control. But the more you get to know it, you start to realize you can't just let whoever do whatever and blah, blah, blah. So it took me about a week, but I got over it. And then, and now I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, and I'm a supporter of boundaries for good reasons.
Now we do have a kids tent, and we allow anybody to come in. You could come in and have a week at the market, but you got to provide a kids activity.
Kids tent?
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh, noted.
Yeah, I mean, we try and make it accessible, but people come to this market because it is a bunch of makers. It's people growing their stuff. You're not inundated with sponsors. Yeah. It's not a craft fair. It's people love it because it is what it is. It's curated. It's special. It is really an intentional thing, the decisions that we're making. And we're more than happy to explain to anybody. But you have to, when we say that this is what it is,
there's always these reasons. Right. There's always reasons. Yeah.
Well, and it isn't just us. There is a committee behind, any jury for farmers market or boardwalk shops or that sort of thing. That is intentional because we don't want it to be our biased opinion. We want to have a real community committee weighing in on some of that.
I love it when somebody new comes into that jury session and, we're really thoughtful. You have to make sure you don't have too many bakers because you want it to feel like you can get your grocery shopping done. And you also want to be mindful to the vendors. You don't want, the market to be 30 bakers and 20 of something else. So, you have to limit what you're doing to make sure they're successful, make sure your market's successful. Good, So there's a reason. And I think anybody that comes into there like, oh, wow, we had no idea how much thought and time goes into the selection process. And it's not just a willy-nilly, Yeah.
Kristen, what is your moment where you questioned everything?
Beth is just giving me the
Is it
best
also someone
look.
yelling at you?
No. Maybe. I think that the first year was hard. I'll be honest. When I came in, I made a career change, And I was at 20 hours a week here.
Were
I
you
didn't
full-time?
start full time. I was, yes. And then
Okay. You were full time at the other job, and then you came to it.
well, kind of. I was full time for a long time at the Park District, went part time when I had my son.
Okay.
And then came to Main Street at 20 hours. But, the work that needed to be done was not 20 hours of
Right.
work. So I was never working 20 hours a week. And by no fault of Beth, it was just that, I
She likes to do things at a really high level, and it's not possible in a limited number of hours.
Yeah. I was struggling to fit in everything that I thought needed to be done within that 20 hours.
Yeah.
So that was my own internal issue, I think, and kind of a barrier. But
And tell them it was not pressure from me.
No, yeah, it wasn't.
We've already
It
told the
wasn't.
story
Yeah.
of recognizing you had too much. Like,
Yes.
this is not a surprise to me.
Yes.
This would like show itself in you had too much work to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then, I think that first year also, like I said, was a realization of like, oh, I'm not hidden in this role anymore. And that wasn't very comfortable for me either. I didn't take the job to be someone that people could stop on the street and tell them their thoughts on certain things or what have you. And I've become increasingly more comfortable with what that is. But I think part of that growth has been Beth and I really trusting each other and always having each other's back and feeling like I have a true partner in this job.
Yeah.
So, I think that first year there was just a lot of growing pains similar to what Beth shared, just with people commenting. And I think for us, it was a realization too that, hey, we have to reintroduce Batavia Main Street to this community and who it is with us, who and tell the story over and over and over. And I think if you look back on the last 3-4 years, that's what we've really tried to do. And so those types of issues, I think, are really a lot more spread out than they used to be, which feels good. It makes me feel like we've made a good change. But at the end of the day, we have an incredible board, really, of 16 people who really care and really do support us and trust us. And then a wonderful staff. Anyone that knows Beth and I know that we're just truly annoyingly gushy with each other. So, we just really do support each other. And that makes a huge difference in whether or not you enjoy your job, honestly. And we do.
So you've come a long way. You've solved a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Is there something that you're still struggling with? What's your biggest struggle?
Right now, it is really frustrating when we're growing these businesses at the boardwalk shops and we don't have these spaces for them when they do want to go into brick and mortar.
Yes.
So that business retention piece and having that lack of move-in ready spaces or right-size spaces for these businesses, that is something, I don't think a day goes on by that we aren't talking about something we can do about that. Or we're actually in a program right now. We got accepted into a national cohort called Recast Your Leaders, and that whole idea behind that is how do you better support your town and fix these problems. And it's been really exciting to be a part of something like that, where our team consists of Laura Newman from the city and Leah Lehman from City Council. So we just meet every other week with this cohort of people to work through some of the issues that we're having. And at the end of the program, you're supposed to have, which is 10 months, an implementable plan for your problem in the downtown district. So we're hoping that we can make some strides with that program.
That's awesome.
And I think we're also trying to do what we can with the shifts we've made to have things that we can better control. Like I feel like we do have a lot of autonomy not being a part of the city, which I think we need to use to our benefit, meaning that if we want to create a grant, then we can do that thing and we can dole it out. We can help in these other meaningful ways. So we have created our design committee, set aside $10,000 this year to issue a design grant to downtown business owners and property owners.
Nice.
So if there's something like an awning that needs to be replaced, or
a public art, that something that they want to do on their building, or signage that they
updated
need,
planters or beautification somehow to their building, we'll have some money that we'll be able to grant out through Main Street, and in conjunction with what the city is doing, which is really great, just even more support for those incoming businesses or existing businesses. So I'm really excited about that. I like to think of new ways that we can
improve downtown.
So the struggle is...
my struggle.
So it sounded like you were going to say the struggle was like maintaining control of what you're doing or something?
No, I
you
think,
talked about autonomy.
I do think the struggle is we still do have a ton of ideas and things that we want to move forward with. And I mean, my personal struggle is
saying no,
just not doing it all that day. Yeah. But I think, we've gotten a lot better at that and realized that some of these things take time, and a lot of it is out of our control. And so continuing to have the conversations with the right people, I think, is really important.
To you, what does it mean to belong in Batavia? This time, we'll start with Kristen.
I think belonging in Batavia means being engaged in your community, and whether that's downtown, if that's how you feel engaged, whether it's going into the coffee shop and seeing the same barista, or going into a business and seeing the owner and having a conversation, or it's being really involved in the school district, or being involved in Batavia Youth Baseball or something. I think that there are so many opportunities to really engage and be a part and belong, and I think you have to find the one that fits for you. But gosh, there's so many options. So,
well, I'm somebody whose parents moved around a lot, so I just think belonging in Batavia is like, I just am so, like, I'm in a community with all my friends. Yeah. I get to see them that I work with. I always say the best part about working at Main Street is just all the people you get to meet and know. Yeah. And it just reinforces just how amazing the town is that we live in. So I feel like I actually really belong in Batavia just from the relationships that I've made.
Jennifer's parents also moved around a lot. Uh-huh. Every now and then she'll get the itch, like, get out of here. Mm-hmm. Not in that way, but like, I just want to move.
Yeah.
So do you ever have that?
No.
How'd you break yourself of that?
Well, I think for me, maybe it was a little traumatizing.
Okay. You really didn't like it. So that makes sense.
I think that there's something about, I like my house, I like my community, but I love the people. Yeah. And I don't want to leave them. I mean, every once in a while when it's cold, I'm like, ugh. But other than that,
me too.
But no, I don't really think about leaving. This is where my friends are.
Thanks for listening to Area Code Batavia. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. If you enjoy this podcast, why not subscribe to our newsletter? Just click the link in the show notes and put in your email address. Most importantly, if you know someone who would love to hear this podcast, please share it with them. Word of mouth is the best way to grow this community and help more people feel like they belong in Batavia, Illinois. Area Code Batavia is produced by Area Code Audio. It's hosted and produced by me, Richard Clark, with additional production help from Jennifer Clark.